My name is Salim Amin, son of Mohamed Amin, world-famous photojournalist. This was Dad's favorite city, Addis Ababa. 14 years ago, Dad was in the thick of it. He rode into town on the leading tank, filming the crowds, ecstatic at the overthrow of a hated regime. Colonel Mengistu was ousted at last, the presidential palace abandoned in unseemly haste. Mengistu had cut and run, leaving the flotsam and jetsam of a 14-year reign of terror to the mercy of souvenir hunters. These were dangerous streets in 1991 as pockets of Mengistu supporters dug in. But there was another world at the Hilton Hotel where the world's press cavorted and drank. The hacks had had a pretty good war, and now it was all over. Or so it seemed. But on June 4th, the sky was lit up by an almighty explosion. Filming from his bedroom balcony was Dad, and watching the pyrotechnic spectacular with him was Michael Burke and Colin Blaine, both BBC correspondents. They all decided to get out into town to see what on earth was going on.
Vehicles were in short supply. And of course, your dad being your dad,
He had a car.
He had a car. He had hired a taxi about a week earlier, and he just didn't bother giving it back. So we had a Mercedes taxi with the meter still running for a week, but it was ours and we could use it. The decision was taken that there would be good pictures, there'd be interesting pictures. I wanted to be there, and there were only a few seats. You know, the Mercedes could only take 5, and so 5 of us went down there. We thought we were going in for the aftermath. We didn't realise that the Big Bang was very much still to come. It was, and it was some bang. I mean, it must have been one of the biggest explosions ever in Africa.
So the camera team drove off in the direction of the explosions.
But it's quite something coming here now and seeing, even all these years later, there's still
This amount
live and dangerous stuff lying around. And this is only a fraction of what there was. It's scary, even today. I think we probably better move on.
Mengistu's army was the biggest in Africa, and 14 years on there are still rusting and unstable shells, detonators and hand grenades.
Michael Burke and I were immediately behind. It was not possible to walk abreast. It was just walking down in a line. And as we walked down, that was when there was suddenly this most ferocious bang.
We were all thrown in different directions, and I think Colin Blaine, the radio reporter, and I were slightly protected by the wall. But for it seemed like about 3 minutes, the air was just full of metal and masonry falling all over us, and dust and noise.
The damage was to his arm. His hand was fine. His hand was a perfect hand. But then from the wrist to the shoulder, it was horrible. You know, it was shredded. Some of the bones had been blown away. It was just dreadful. And he must have been suffering terrible pain. He kept asking me, am I going to die? And of course, the only thing you can do when someone is like that is to reassure them, even though I didn't know, but was to say, nope, you're going to be fine. Everything will be fine. We'll get you out. It's only your arm. And so he showed great fortitude. He was very brave. I mean, it must have been terrible. I had to leave him because we needed a vehicle. And I ran to get another vehicle, and then Michael Burke came out to see if he could find the car keys, because it was the car keys we needed. We knew that we had to have transport. We couldn't just drag him out. We had to put him in something and get him to hospital.
The authorities are at last trying to clear the site. It takes Colin Blaine a while to get his bearings, but eventually he pinpoints the exact spot where it all happened.
The car was here. all broken up, and the car windows were all smashed out, you know, so there was glass everywhere. There was a carpet of glass on the back seat, and we had to lay your father on the back seat, covered in this glass. So I was trying to move the vehicle as quickly as I could, but I hadn't been in it before. So as I let the clutch in, it moved forward.
It kept going
It
towards
kept
the
going
bank.
forward, and I'd stop and I'd fight with the gears, and I'd find another forward gear, and it would move forward again. And from the back seat, Mo, who's half dead, was saying, it's reverse, and it's pull out and push round, you know. He knew, because he drove these things all the time.
Yeah.
So he knew how to change gear, even though he's half dead.
Yeah.
He still managed to provide the information we needed to get out. I mean, we were very nearly.
That's typical.
We were very nearly
And then
down.
you just hightailed it out of here.
Absolutely.
One of the 5 did not make it. Sound recordist John Mathai was killed in the blast.
My knowledge of Addis was quite good, and I came screaming up this road here. You know, the road was deserted because, of course, there'd been a huge explosion,
Yeah.
so there was nobody around.
And there were people in the hospital at this point? I mean, did you see anybody out there in the parking lot?
There were people around in the parking area, so we stopped pretty much bang outside this ramp here.
Yeah.
And then ran in, the door's still open, got a trolley and some help, and wheeled
Wheeled him up
straight
here.
up into the hospital. You know, it was all done pretty quickly. And yeah, this was the place where we got him. We brought him in here. And what I do remember is that I had to go to a window around the side to pay for the drip, because that had to be paid for in Ethiopian birr. I had enough money, paid for the drip, and then he was taken into a side room and stabilized, and the drip was inserted. Then, of course, the next thing that happened was that there was a requirement for blood. And what was most astonishing, and I'll never forget, is the way that his fellow hacks rallied round. And among those were people that he'd screwed over, the victims of his sharp practice, including, and I remember, CNN were there, and they had suffered at his hands just a few days earlier when they tried to put a packet of their own pictures on a plane that was leaving, our plane, and Mohamed had insisted that their packet couldn't fly.
Take it off.
Nobody seemed to mind about that when there was a big problem, a big emergency.
At the Zauditu hospital in Addis, Dad was put on a drip and stabilized. Colin Blaine had saved his life.
Colin, he wrote you a letter shortly after to thank you for saving his life, but in it he emphasized again that you had left his camera behind. And you wrote him back, and the opening line of your letter was, "You ungrateful bastard." And you can take it up from there.
We were great mates, but I began to realise that this was more than just a joke. You know, there was something in it. He just couldn't let it go. And so I spelt it out for him. I said to him, you know, next time the camera comes out, because we'll make one trip on your behalf, the camera comes out, but you stay behind in amongst all the flying
Because
debris.
nobody would want to steal you.
Exactly, nobody would want to steal you. Somebody did steal the camera. I mean, it disappeared, because I did go back for it a couple of days later, but it was gone. So there was nothing we could do. But it just shows you how crazy he was about the work that he did, because he was convinced that there was footage in the camera that would have been useful.
Dad's life was in the balance. He would stand a better chance with an airlift to a better equipped hospital in Nairobi.
I woke up that morning with an excruciating pain in my left arm. And then we got a phone call at about 9:30, 10 o'clock from Addis. I don't remember who it was from. And they said, look, there's been an accident. There's been an explosion in the city, and Dad was badly injured.
It looked as if Dad would live, but his left arm was hanging by a thread. A microsurgical team was on standby in Nairobi.
My mum and I went to the airport. We got into the ambulance with him. The doctor here, a very good surgeon, said to him, look, it's been almost 16 hours since the accident happened, and if we don't operate now, and we'll have to take off your arm at the elbow, if we don't operate now, there's going to be a big chance of gangrene setting in, and you may lose it from your shoulder. So he signed the form authorizing the operation, and that was it.